Hi, folks. Welcome to the podcast. This is the Finch Show, and I am James Finch. My guest on the podcast today is Joleen Diaz, and you can follow her on Instagram at Joleen Diaz. She has an interesting story. She's an elementary school teacher from the Bay Area in California, originally born in Guam, emigrated here to the United States. And we talked about a great many things, obviously about her teaching, about being on social media and everything that goes with that, and so much more. She's a fantastic human being. I absolutely love talking to her. But I'm going to stop talking this intro and get right to the episode. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Joleen Diaz. So, teaching, how long have you been teaching?
I have been teaching since 2014. So about not very long, actually, about 8 years, 7 or 8 years. I got into it late, but I knew I've always wanted to be a teacher. So yeah, I love my job.
What grade do you teach?
I teach fifth grade. I actually started teaching most of my years. I've taught third grade. And then I did a combo class of third and fourth, and then I did fourth and fifth. And then this year's my first year of teaching just fifth grade, and I love it. I love the kids.
Elementary school, my hat's off to you. I do not for the life of me have the patience to do it. And the teachers at my children's school are absolute rock stars, and I give absolute props to them every single day because I don't know how they do it.
I think that, sometimes I definitely get both sides of it. I get people that, appreciate teachers and kind of, just show gratitude towards what we do. And then there's others that feel especially with the pandemic that, but education right now is really tough, I think, for everyone, parents, the whole community, students, and teachers as well. So it takes all of us.
Yeah, definitely. We had that a week and a half ago where the school that my two youngest children go to got just that school got shut down due to COVID because it was just running rampant through the faculty. And so we had to do a week of basically Zoom sessions for a kindergartner and a third grader, which was just and this is on top of me working, my wife working. But it's one of those things where it's like you can get frustrated by it. But at the end of the day, it's just something we got to get through. It's something that we all have to, it's nobody's fault. It's not and God, the teachers were phenomenal going out of their way to do as much as they possibly could. And I don't know why they haven't gotten, every teacher in the country hasn't gotten $1 million raise by now, because it's absolutely amazing.
Or education in general, getting more funding just to help the schools run a little more efficiently and safely. It's pretty amazing how little we've gotten, honestly. I don't know if it's been much, if anything at all. So we've been lucky. I've been lucky as a teacher. I haven't had, we're not allowed to discuss it, but my class has been really good. I haven't had to quarantine or stay home this entire school year so far. So our precautions that we're doing within our classroom and our school community have been really good. So I'm ready. We do a lot of things on tech right now just to prepare for what happened at your school. Just in case, I just want to be ready, because it's so hard from missing school for a year and a half of being in an actual classroom. To go back to that again, they've lost so much. So
yeah, and it's so hard, especially with the elementary children, where everything they do builds on what they just did before.
Yeah.
When you had with any kind of significant pause in there or anything, it really, my youngest son is in kindergarten, and he missed about a year of preschool due to COVID. And it was just and you feel so terrible because that's time just lost. That's not time you can just get back, and it's so rough. And I don't understand how we can be this far into the pandemic and it hasn't been proven that every single school in this country needs a massive amount of funding. If we're not funding schools, if we're not pouring that in, then what are we is there something more important to be spending it on? I've been so lost on that for years.
I know, if anything, I feel like parents kind of need it because otherwise they have to stay home from work. So that's a huge part of it too. And also, a lot of kids get their meals from being in school, so that's a huge thing too.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys, because you're in California, right? Yeah,
Bay Area.
And I don't know if you guys have done that here, but I noticed that here in town they had to do that for days when schools were shut down. They would have a drive-through service for breakfast, lunch, and then a snack or yeah, breakfast, lunch, and then a snack for dinner that was just a paper bag drive through. So if
Yeah.
your parents wanted to, they could come through, because unfortunately, so many families have to rely on that, in order for their children to get that much nutrition in a day.
Yeah, they actually, maybe that is a federally funded thing, because I know this entire school year in our county, or at least in our district, the lunches are free.
Hmm.
So
Good.
that's nice. Yeah.
So you say you've always wanted to be a teacher. Do you have any notion as to where that came from? What made you want to go that route?
Not a clue, but I do remember my earliest memories are setting up my stuffed animals in my bedroom. I'd come home from school and I'd go to my closet and act like it was a chalkboard, because back then they were chalkboards, and I'd teach my stuffed animals. Then I'd have the victim, who's like a cousin who'd be visiting, who'd be my student. And then I think it was my trigonometry teacher in high school. I really looked up to her, and she really made me love learning and love school. And I would see her at church. And so it was like seeing her with her little happy family going to school and looking up to her. I don't know if that whole piece just made me want to teach even more, but I know from when I was a really young kid, I've always wanted to teach. So
Hmm. Well, good for you on making it happen. Was that a long route schooling wise to get to where you are?
it was simply because I had my daughter at such a young age. I had Melani, that's my oldest. She's 21 now and she goes to Cal, so she's in college. I had her at 23, so I kind of put school off. I just completely pushed it to the side, raised her, and then had another accident, which was my son, and had him 6 or 7 years later. I was 30, I believe, when I had him, 30 or 31, I don't remember. Um, and then when in 2008, when the economy took a dive, I don't know if you remember that. I mean, I don't know who's
Oh
old
yeah.
enough to remember that, but that's when I realized, and we had a really great family business going where I was able to raise my children and not have to work. And so, but at that point, the business kind of took a dive, and I was like, you know what? I want to teach. I want to go back. So I went back, and I got my degree and my credential online. So, and then just immediately started teaching.
Fantastic. Are you born and raised in the Bay Area then, or are you?
Well, I was born in Guam,
Oh,
and I
really?
left there when I was 10. Yeah. So I went to school there, and like coming home from kindergarten, the bus would drop me off at the bottom of this like hill ravine thing, and I'd hike through the jungle to get back to my house. So I grew up really island, Air Force Base, which is in Northern California, because I had an aunt that lived there. And it was like a culture shock. I was completely awkward, and it was a really weird, I guess at the time I didn't realize it was kind of like a depressing time for me, just because so awkward and out of it. Oh, sorry, I think my internet's bad. Okay, I think it
Yeah,
came
we're
back.
good.
Sorry. I saw it said that my internet wasn't stable. Let me disconnect my like. Okay. So anyway, yeah, so it was like a big culture shock for me, and it took me a really, really long time, probably until I was in 8th grade, to finally like be a little more confident within myself. So it took a
Hmm.
really long time.
Do you still have a lot of family back in Guam?
I do actually. I do. I haven't visited for decades now because it's so expensive. Um, but I do go to Hawaii often. I have family that kind of go back and forth between the two places just because it's somewhat close. But now my family, we're spread all over, but there's still a big, huge chunk of us that still live on in Guam.
Hmm. What I'm terrible. I hate to sound ignorant here. What language is generally spoken in Guam?
Okay, so it's called Chamorro, and
Tomorrow.
it's definitely just indigenous to that. Well, actually, no, there's a couple of surrounding islands that speak it as well. But I grew up speaking and listening to it. My grandma she did nothing but speak the language to me. I completely lost it speaking it, but I can understand if my family does speak it to me. But it's completely, I mean, it's only used by the people that live there.
Hmm. I had wondered about that. That's interesting you say that. I had just recently excuse me, finished reading a series of books regarding the World War II in the Pacific. And so many of those islands like Guam, Guadalcanal, the Marianas have such a, it was interesting as the author got into how a lot of these islands or chains of islands had indigenous populations that all of a sudden found themselves caught in between. Here's Japanese, here's American, here's aircraft carriers, here's battleships, here's airplanes, here's bulldozers coming in and building airstrips, and just what an absolute shock to the cultural system that was for so many of those. But Guam, especially that, because that was, and I don't know if this is, in your wheelhouse at all, there was a pretty significant naval base there for a good period of time, wasn't there?
There is, and there's a big Air Force base now, and I think the Marines are coming back. So I think strategically for the military, it's good for the U.S. And I'm pretty certain that's why our economy kind of thrives on the military being there.
Mm-hmm. Sure. What kind of population lives there now?
I'd say it's probably a good mix of Filipinos and this is just me from what my family does. Filipinos and maybe Japanese and a lot of military.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Sorry, I don't know if my internet's cutting out.
It does a little bit. I just fill in the gaps.
I tried to find a good spot. But I think it's, and there's maybe 200 something thousand people there. It's about 35 miles long and 4 miles wide. It's really tiny.
Mm-hmm.
Tiny island.
Wow. So did you originally come to the mainland with your folks? Did your folks immigrate? Is that how that happened?
Yeah, my dad wanted us to get my family, me and my 3 younger sisters, to get a better education. So he moved us all out here.
Aw, yeah. Good for him. Well, we're glad to have you, 100%. So one of the things that I find interesting about you is you have got a pretty significant following, especially on Instagram. Was that something that sort of grew slowly over time, or one day did you just wake up and were like, oh my God, all these people are following me?
Definitely the second, the latter of it. My daughter made a TikTok right before the pandemic hit. It was like a TikTok all the kids were doing, and that TikTok went viral, and then everything just kind of happened from there, which is huge. I know it may not seem that way, and I think it's funny because like social media or just the media in general, people create these narratives of you and the type of person you think they are. I think in general, I'm a friendly person. I tend to be outgoing, but really I'm pretty shy, and like this is easy for me. But when all that initially happened, I'm like, this is horrible. It was like a very weird time for me. It took this whole time from the beginning of 2020 until now for me to kind of be like, okay, like I can kind of own this a little bit better now. It took a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. I don't even have as many followers as like most like these huge accounts do. I don't know how they deal with it. It's weird when you start thinking how many eyes actually are looking at you, because it's so easy to take a picture and make a video and look into a camera. And then, I don't look back. Like if I post, I don't look back on likes. I'll comment in the beginning, and then I just kind of let it go after that, because I feel like, if you linger on something too long or you go back, I think I noticed that just for me is not a healthy way to deal with my social media. And so I just tend to move forward. But yeah, so like it's easy. If you look back for me, then you start realizing how many people are viewing you. And I feel like that's overwhelming. It can be overwhelming.
Yeah, I can imagine it is. And I like the way you put that. I've found from talking to people that I know who have a really large social media following, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is that I think everybody kind of goes into it at the beginning, sort of like, oh, I'm going to be that kind of person who interacts with all the comments and interacts with all my followers and stuff like that. But it seems like it eventually becomes a massive drain on somebody emotionally. And so many of those people I know now, they're just like what you said, they get to the point where they just post something and move on. They
Yeah.
don't tend to spend a lot of time because, I mean, let's face it, I mean, the internet, it brings a lot of good and also brings, unfortunately, a lot of bad with it. And I think even for your own mental health, sometimes you'd almost have to stay out of those comment section because there are people out there who are just like waiting to just spew whatever out in the hopes that they'll hurt somebody or get noticed. And I don't understand it at all, though.
And I think because I'm older, even when they do, I think in my head, if I like something, I barely even comment. I don't comment, right? I'm just like, oh, this is cool. I think in my head how cool something is. But if I don't like something, I would never waste my time on commenting. I just like move on from whatever it is that I didn't like what I saw. So when people just not even on my own page, but in general, like I like, reading recipes and all these things. And sometimes people leave these horrible comments. I'm like, why would you waste your time like leaving something so negative unless it's something that hurts people's health or their lives or something. But I just so I don't that's being older, I just don't really, it doesn't really bother me. But you're right, like I think maybe it doesn't because I don't linger. Like I'll go and I'll say hi to everyone and for like the first 20 minutes or so, and then like okay, and then I'm kind of done with it. Not done with
Mhm.
it, but I don't want to make it sound like I don't care. But I think we all deal with our platforms and our social media, no matter how big your account is, in your own personal way, right?
Hmm. You are so right, and I'm there. I'm there, right there with you. And I think you're right that I think age has something to do with it, because I have never, ever, ever understood. Now that we're in this world of social media, if I were scrolling through social media and I saw something I didn't like, just keep scrolling.
Yeah.
Like, what prompts you to stop and be like, "Oh, you suck. You need to like."
Yeah.
Who are you trying to impress? You're not intimidating anybody. You're not impressing anybody. You're not making anybody's lives or yours better. I have never, ever, ever understood that once. Every once in a while, like if it's a friend or something that's
Oh
really
yeah.
cool, I'll comment and be like, hey, that's really awesome. But outside of
Or
that,
you
yeah.
roast them. If it's a friend, feel free to roast because like that's back and forth fun, right?
Right.
But I think like when you take the time to be negative, it just brings out the ugly of you in general. And how can you proceed forward on anything, even on something you may like, being positive when you just did something so ugly, or like negative? So
Mhm.
I don't know, that's my take on it.
Well, and it's so true because you never know what somebody's going through, and I think about that a lot. Like, I had this friend that I talked to who has an Instagram who shares a lot of cooking stuff.
Mhm.
And so with that, anytime you're doing stuff on social media, there's a level of pressure to stay present, to stay relevant, to make sure that content is regularly posted. Um, and so there were times where she would be, putting together a video on something and getting it out there purely for that. Well, in the meantime, something in her personal life is just like absolutely collapsing, that she's having a hard time dealing with that. And yet when she posts this video on social media like Instagram, and then when people come in and start negatively commenting on it, it's just making that person's life worse. Like, you don't know what other people are dealing with. You don't know what you're going through. And at the very top of this, you had said that people love to build a narrative. Like, they see a picture of you and they think, oh, well, they must be this kind of person who likes this, likes this, likes this. And they build this whole like thing around you and then expect you to act that way. And then when you
Yeah.
don't, they get upset. Like somehow they have ownership over you and who you're supposed to be.
Yeah, and I think, that's one thing I had to that took that was the hardest thing for me to grasp is I think in general in life, yes, I am a very positive person. I try to I get outside every day because I have to for my own mental health. Like I think people just think, naturally I'm this vibrant, happy, smiley person all the time. Well, I do a lot of things to nurture that in me because I do have my own times when I feel myself getting low. I'm like, I can go outside again today, and get outside and do something good for myself. And so that part, I don't know how to properly share that. I've tried to share that in a post or two, but people kind of do what they do. I do have to say that I think the most friendly, I'm not active on a lot of platforms, but I think YouTube people seem to be pretty nice. But I'm also very inconsistent on YouTube. I don't really have a following on there. And I know with YouTube, they're really into like every week kind of thing.
Yeah.
And videos, I don't know how you do it because you do the podcast and a video. I mean, the videos, people don't realize, even if they're a minute long, like editing it down so that you're not watching, 10 minutes of boring stuff takes so much work.
Well, right, but I always think of it as though anybody who's into my podcast is already into boring. So what's a little bit more boring? I mean, it's not that.
I
big a deal.
listened to several of your podcasts, and I love podcasts. Like, I love your format because, like, if I'm getting ready for bed, I'll play it, right? Or I'll start your podcast when I'm on my run. And then it's just not in a bad way, but sometimes you just need something in the background or something to pay attention to. And you can always like hit the rewind if you're like, wait, what did they just say? You're like, I think I heard something. Let me go back a little bit. So, I mean, I think you definitely have something, that works because you can listen to it. You can lay in bed and just like have it playing.
Well, I appreciate the compliment. That's exciting.
It's a good thing.
Well, good. So,
I'm sorry. What did you say?
I said I appreciate the compliment. I really do. There, okay. we glitched on it in there for.
Okay, sorry. I know. I was like, it's gonna take like a second. I don't know why it does that, but hopefully it doesn't do it again.
Yeah, it's no problem. That's the beautiful thing about editing. It's absolutely no issue at all.
Yeah, make sure I'm not frozen like this. Like,
I'll make a TikTok out of it. It'll be great.
Yeah, there you go. All the random faces.
I'll just Photoshop you like in front of the Arc de Triomphe and Empire State Building and
sitting right next to you.
Right, just frozen. That's what I'm going to do from here on out. I'm just going to get a still frame of you frozen like that, and I'm going to like green screen it in behind me for every single podcast from here on out. Just.
Like her Wi-Fi, her internet didn't go bad. She was teleported over here.
Right. So this is what I want to ask you, because this is just blows my mind. When you have a following of the size that you do on Instagram, what does your inbox look like? Your DM inbox on that?
Oh, I hate to put myself on blast, but my DM box, checking my messages is another way I kind of balance out my mental health. As far as social media, I really don't check it. Mm-hmm. So I maybe check it every 3 days, 2 or 3 days, and I just quickly scroll through the first few scrolls. And I do that mostly, like, I try to check for people who really want like advice, or asking true questions or business opportunities. But I figured if it was a business that was truly interested, like how you reached out and you emailed, like if you messaged on Instagram, I never saw it because I just don't really check it. And I've learned that it's most honestly 99.999% of my messages are very nice, and some of them are a little bit, do you know what I mean? But
so we just had like a massive technology glitch. The podcast gods were like, not today. So now we're back, and you were right in the middle of talking about something interesting when this happened. So I will just attempt to hand it back over to you.
I think we were talking, okay, so it was about like checking DMs and how I don't actually, that I hate saying it. In the beginning, I did check it, because it was kind of new and you want to make sure that you're responding to everyone that asks for help, and that your business inquiries kind of get responded to. But I noticed from my mental health that it's checking the messages. And I don't know if you caught this part or not, but 99.999% of them are very nice and very positive. Some borderline, like questionable morals, but it's still like in a positive way. And even though they're very kind and they can boost your self-confidence, I feel like for my mental health, it doesn't work that way. Because I've never been a person that needs other people for reassurance of myself and my worth. And then I think you can get sucked into that really, really easily in this environment. And it's just weird. It never rubbed me the right way, but I do appreciate people taking the time to be very positive and be very supportive, of course. But so I typically don't check messages. And I kind of do say that in comments when they're like, check DMs. I'm like, oh, well, I really don't,
Yeah.
But I'll look at them every 3 days or so. But the unfortunate thing is, like, I can't tell you what day I'd look at it. I'd sometimes go, let me check this today. And I scroll a little bit, and then I just kind of, see what I see, answer what I think needs to be answered, and then kind of move on. I don't know. And honestly, my thing is I'm a teacher and that's my career. It may not pay the greatest, but I know it's something that I love doing. It's what I see it in my happily ever after. I hate saying this, but I don't know where social media is going to be for me even next month. Like, some days it really is exactly what you said. You have to kind of be on top of it, and you have to constantly post content. And I don't have the most interesting life like I think people want me to have. And so I don't know. I'm going and I'm doing it, and I'm trying to, I'm embracing and trying to have fun with it. But it's hard. Now I see why people become content creators, and that's true. I'm like, oh God, that really is a job, because it really does take up your whole day. It can really, especially if you're on all the platforms, all you're doing all day is making content. And I'm like, what I do is I wake up at 6, commute almost an hour to go to work. And then, I'm at work and I come home at about 6. Like, that's my whole day. So to create content is almost impossible. And so what I started to do was, if I do something at work, I'll just film it there. At first I thought, okay, this is the strangest thing, filming like my lunchtime workouts, because I know it's kind of strange. Like, okay, you're in a classroom working out. Well, like I said, I work and I get home at 6, and now the sun sets, so it's hard to go on my runs. So I'll work out at work, and I thought, I'll just share it. But, and then I don't know, I just share what I can now when I can. And so what I'm sharing is pretty authentic to my day. But even then, honestly, it's kind of hard to let people in to that much of your life. I know they love it, but it is kind of like, okay, now you're seeing what I really do. You see my morning, like I did a video on driving to work, and then I just do these little things that I'm like, wow, they're really starting to see my life. So if you take a picture that's completely posed and created for Instagram, and then you actually watch my videos, you're like, okay, yeah, she's kind of a mess in her daily life, as opposed to like these poised and put together pictures.
Well, that's appreciated, because I think we're all a mess. I think everybody's a mess to some extent, and that stuff is great because it's genuine. It doesn't feel like everything is just picture perfect and scripted, and everything just goes smoothly. But I sometimes you almost wonder, and I know there's a line in there, like it's one thing to give followers sort of a view into your daily life and what goes on. But I definitely think there's a line there. I think that there's some, at some point it can be too much, because you never know. Gosh, I never should have done this, but about a year ago, I started listening to a podcast called Strictly Stalking. and it's kind of like a true crime podcast, which I'm typically not into, but this one specifically revolves around stories of stalkers. And one of the co-hosts on there, Jamie Beebe's been on my podcast, and yeah, I feel like, yeah, once you start listening to the tales of some of these people have had to go through with being stalked, I'd be terrified. You know, sometimes I get terrified to even let people out there know what my face looks like for fear that something like that would happen, you know?
You know what's funny is I have the nicest followers that don't stalk me. But I was stalked when I was younger, like in a serious way where like people had to get involved and like you had to be like tracked and then figured out who it was. That was a scary, switched cars, didn't go home. It was like a very scary experience. But I have to say I haven't run into, I mean, I know there are some, you know, some people that maybe feel like they know me more than they do, and they feel like, you know, they can just maybe come and try to find me. I don't know. They don't. No one has. Thank goodness, because they're so nice. But I haven't run into like anyone really,
Mhm.
anyone really scary. It is kind of cool when I go out and like people say hi, and I'm like, well, you know, it's cool to meet people in person.
So you were, and if you don't want to get into it, that's fine. But
I don't care.
when you were
Ask me anything. Go ahead. Go for it.
anything. So when you were talking, was this somebody you knew? Was it just somebody that saw you and just decided they were going to start following you? Or
yeah, no, it ended up being someone who knew someone I knew. So I'd never met the guy. Maybe I did. I don't remember. Like maybe he was like, you know, across the field, or I don't know what it was, but I'd never truly like been introduced to him. And he would call. I mean, he was like relentless. He was calling my work. He was like following me in cars. It was like it was crazy. It was insane. And I don't know why though. Because I mean, like, really, if you want to talk to someone, shouldn't you just say, hey?
so if he was calling you and following, was he like, did he at any point in time say, hi, I'm Mitch and I'd like to take you out to dinner?
He would call my job, and I worked at the time, I worked for an attorney. So it was me and the legal secretary. And if I answered the phone, he was like, you know, I see you today, you're wearing, and like hang up the phone. I mean, it was like creepy stuff. Or if the lady would answer, you know, of course he would say, oh, may I please speak to Joleen? Because I was working, right? And then I'd get the phone and he'd say something, you know, like, I don't know, I know you get off at 6. I don't know, just creepy stuff. He was horrible. And then he'd call my house and leave messages on, you know, answering machines. Or maybe it was just a voicemail. I don't know. But back then, you know, we had house phones that took messages. So that was a really creepy experience.
Yeah. Did you end up having to go to the police over it, or?
Yeah, and he ended up, actually, my uncle passed away now. He actually passed away from COVID. But he ended up doing a tap at first into the line. He wasn't allowed to, but he worked at the time for the phone company around here, and he traced it back. And I'm like, I have no clue who that is. So then we were able to at least get someone that they could contact. And then it was, and the thing is, the guy was harmless. Well, I mean, he wasn't harmless, but then I'm like, really? It was you? I'm like, what in the world? You ruined my life for like 2 months. Like,
oh my.
It was crazy. Yeah. And ended up being, you know, and I was like, all you had to do was like say, hey, can we be friends? I mean, I don't know if I would have, but knowing now how he was, no. But
right.
You know, like, I'm a nice person. I don't know. But yeah, anyway, now I don't get, you know, I feel like everyone's attention is dispersed through thousands of different people that, you know, you don't really, no one really focuses on one person is what as far as social media and all of you.
Right. Yeah. There's
theory, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. So as we're kind of getting down towards the end here, I want to ask a couple quick questions. What is your absolute favorite place to visit anywhere?
kind of have two that are kind of like even. I love going to Oahu like so much. I love, well, probably because I have my dog. I don't know if you can hear it.
It's okay.
The hiking, the diving, everything about it. If I could live there, I probably would. And then I also really, this past year was my first time visiting Puerto Vallarta, and I really love it there. The sunsets there are like amazing, and the weather there is actually the most ideal for me. Warm like all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a far and away different story. Long time ago, I spent a summer living just outside San Diego. El Cajon was, I believe, the suburb was the name of it. And for those of us in the Midwest, it was an absolute paradise, because living here in the Midwest, I've never understood why people live here to begin with, because in the summer, the humidity is so high, the heat is almost unbearable. And in the winter, it's like we were talking on the phone, what was it, earlier in the week? And it was like 5 degrees outside here with a wind chill of -26. And I'm just like, why do people live here? I don't know. Well, it's because our parents lived here, and then we don't want to leave because our parents are here, and then we have kids and we don't want to leave because our kids are here. Yeah, but
and then you have Californians who are always complaining about like the slight 10-degree
right.
And you know what I started checking now is I don't even really necessarily check temperature anymore. I check the wind. I'm like, how windy is it in that part of where I'm going? And then I'm like, oh, 10 miles an hour, not going there today. Everyone's like, she's a weirdo.
There's a wind, there's a massive blizzard coming through. It's only going to be a high of 75 tomorrow, right?
Yeah, and I feel really awful. Like I know in the Northeast right now it's pretty bad. So
yeah, they're getting it pretty bad. How about someplace that you want to visit but haven't been to yet?
I haven't been to so many places. I have to tell you, my traveling experiences are like this big. You'd think I'd have been more places, but is it weird to say I'd love to go somewhere off the wall, like, I don't know, like Antarctica, or just somewhere that really is not, you can't really get to very easy. I've never been to Europe, so you'd think I'd say something like Paris, right? But I feel like that's accessible. I'd love to go somewhere, maybe like in Africa, that's kind of like you'd have to fly and then drive and then like, for a whole day to get to. I don't have an exact place, I'm sorry.
Someplace really remote though.
Yeah, but now you got it on my bucket list, so I think about that one place I'm going to go to before I die. Unless I can get on like a SpaceX rocket to the moon or something.
Well, keep getting followers and maybe someday that can be you. How about, so here's what's interesting. I've noticed on your Instagram that you've been to a few, I think, San Francisco Giants games.
Oh.
Are you a baseball fan, or is that just someplace fun to go do?
I love sports in general. I love watching it. I definitely root for Bay Area teams. So I don't choose the Giants or the A's. I don't choose, when the Raiders were here, my dad, by the way, is like a diehard Raider fan, even though they moved. I don't really choose teams. I just root for the Bay. But I do love, I love watching games, but can't say that, don't ask me all the little things that they call, but I love watching sports. I will go to any game, hockey, anything, and watch it. Or if it's on TV, I feel like something about it is relaxing and just like something fun to do. Especially like on a Sunday, like right now we're missing the games. Football games.
Right. Right.
Very important game is about to come on in about an hour for us.
Yeah, that's the one you're waiting on, right?
Yeah. Like, well, we're doing this podcast. Let me time it exactly right here.
Right. Yeah. Hey, I've done that before too. Especially, I'm here, Freeport, Illinois, which is a couple hours outside of Chicago. I'm wearing my Cubs hat right now. Yeah, and we haven't. I miss that feeling of being excited about a sports team in a big game. It's been a while on any of the sports.
And I'm gonna get hate beyond belief, but Aaron Rodgers went to Cal, and I believe he's from like Chico. So he's like a NorCal guy. So when Green Bay played the Niners last weekend, of course I'm like, okay, you know, you got to root for the Niners. I'm at this sports bar watching the game with like psychotic fans. But then in my head, I'm like, but he's from the Bay. Like, be nice to him. And they're relentless. They're like, until he comes back, you know, he's no one.
Nah, forget that guy. We don't, especially here as Bears fans, where we've spent the last like how many years of him beating the crap out of us twice a year. We're just like, go away. Yeah, go back to Cal. Whatever. Get out of here. You know?
Well, soon. Like, he has no love anywhere. The one place is just me, who's like feels bad for him.
Well, on the flip side, that Packers Niners games, Bears fans thoroughly enjoyed the end of that one because Robbie Gould, the kicker of the Niners, was with the Bears for so long that we still feel like he's one of us. So when Robbie Gould gets to go out there and kick the field goal to bounce the Packers out of the playoffs, every Bears fan was cheering. The whole Midwest was losing their mind.
Did you go crazy?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I jumped out of my chair and went, "That's Robbie Gould. That's our guy." You know?
You're like, kick Aaron Rodgers' ass.
Right? Yeah, and then you get to watch him mope off the field, and you feel giddy about it. And you know,
and then there's Joleen on the side going, "Oh, but he's a NorCal guy. Be nice to him."
Oh, it's got to be a terrible feeling knowing that your team is going to the NFC Championship game and still getting to feel sorry for the other team's quarterback. That's like that. Those are problems I want. Like I will take both of those at the same time. That's totally fine, you know. Well, we're getting about to the end here. Do you got anything that you'd like to say on the way out?
I didn't really prepare well for this, so
Neither do I. So it's fine.
no, yeah, like no, this has been really fun. I like that it's been really normal. We'll have to do it again, and this time I'll give you all the Q&As that I've ever been asked, and you can just ask them to me. Yes,
as a matter of fact, yeah, we'll talk about that off camera, but that would be something that'd be fun to do if we just like made a list of all the Q&As you get asked, and we'll just, you know, we'll rifle fire through them one at a time.
Oh, that would be so much fun. That would like content creation done.
Right.
I don't have to spend hours typing stuff back. It's like, here we go. Let's have a fun conversation with James.
Well, and it works great because it's like two birds with one stone, because we do that. You get content and I get content. We can both call it a day and be like, oh, there we go. Done. Did our bit for the day. You know,
questions are they're super fun to answer. It's just when you have to type them, and then, you know, on Instagram, you have to find a picture or like something to put behind. It's like, really? Like, can I just hit voice record and then share? It's like, no.
So that's what you need to know, folks. Keep an eye out for that. Eventually there will be a Q&A coming with Joleen. I'm going to look forward to that. And I'm going to see, the problem is that you made the mistake of giving me your phone number, because now I can just start texting constantly like, hey, when are we doing the Q&A? When are we doing the Q&A? And it'll get so annoying.
You are helping me. I think someone asked on YouTube, like, can you do a Q&A? And I'm like, do I like set up the screen, read the question, and then look at you and then answer? Like, if you ask me the question, I feel a little more interactive, as opposed to going, okay, and the next question was, when you were 20, it's like, no, it'd be so much nicer to interact with someone. So
yeah,
would be great.
For sure, definitely. We're gonna do that for sure.
Yeah, let's do it soon.
Yeah, definitely. So we're gonna.
And I like that you hold me accountable. I have to say that I'm pretty bad with, like, because I enjoy my weekends, and so when you're like, okay, what time? I'm like, oh man, this is a commitment. What time did I say? And then even then, guys, James was super nice, because I'm like, you know, James, it's 7:00 this morning. Can we move it to 1 instead of 12? Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you know, I have to tell you, as somebody who hosts a podcast, the most difficult part about doing a podcast is getting guests to come on. And you're always attempting to ride that line between being persistent and not being an annoying little jerk. You know what I mean? Because you get people who are like, yeah, sure, I'll come on your podcast. Let me check my schedule and I'll get back to you. And then like a month goes by and they haven't gotten back to you. So you message them again and they don't respond to that one. So then you kind of like, you start getting in your head like, okay, should I just take the hint, or are they just a very crazy and a busy and unorganized person like I am? And I've had people been on the podcast where it took like 3 months of like back and forth and hey, but you never want to cross it because if you cross the line with somebody, then you never have a chance. They'll just be like,
you're letting out secrets. I didn't know that. It seems like, well, you just go like, Alexa, play a podcast, and everyone's getting interviewed. So you think it's easy to get people on, but oh great, Alexa just answered. Alexa, stop.
And I tell every single guest I appreciate it so much because I understand that people have different comfort levels. People are more extroverted, more introverted. For some people, something like this is way outside their comfort zone. For some people, it's just, hey, I do 20 of these a day. I don't care. But it's been all over the place. I've had people who have, I've had to be on and they've canceled. I've even had somebody who we had a date and time set and emailed back and forth in Zoom link. And then the time came and they just never joined the Zoom and afterwards never responded to any of my messages. And then you're kind of like, you don't want to be rude because you don't know what happened. Like maybe there was a family emergency or something, but then when like 3 months goes by and you see them posting, content, but they're never,
and they didn't even like apologize. Yeah.
No.
I have to say, if I commit to something, then I do it. So yeah. And then honestly, when I listened to your podcast, I was like, I like this guy. So I liked, your format. I liked everything about it. So
great. I got my endorphin rush for the day now. Thank you. There's all the dopamine right now. It's just cool.
Yeah, it'll help you deal with your -5 degree whatever.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you're really that interested in going to Antarctica, come to Illinois. It's like Antarctica, but we have pizza. You have
trees. I want to go to like Arctic. I want to go to permafrost where there's no trees. There's nothing. Just want.
Well, I hope if you do, you get out okay and one day there isn't just a news report that teacher Joleen Diaz from the Bay Area was found dead in Antarctica
by a stalker in Antarctica. Everything bad that could possibly happen from that podcast happened.
You know what though? If that guy went to the length of stalking you all the way to Antarctica, he probably deserves at least a high five.
I should give him a chance because red flags all over the place.
Well, that'd be like the first guy who said he'd go to the ends of the earth for you and actually meant it, right?
You are a typical bro.
Yeah. I don't hide it. That's fine. Well, all right, Joleen, I'm going to let you enjoy your Sunday. You have just a little bit of time before the game starts.
Yeah.
Go Niners.
Yep, Niners because of the Bears, the whole like kicker thing.
Yeah, Robbie Gold's going to win it for you. I just know it. I'm counting on it.
Yeah. It seems like most of the games recently always come down to the kickers. It's like, right, they're winning because of field goals. So
right, yeah, and it's like a position nobody drafts. They just every year in the offseason go find somebody and pay him to come in, and then all of a sudden in the playoffs, their entire season hinges on this dude nailing 137-yard field goal.
I used to go, this person has one job, I could do that job. And now I'm like, I respect that job.
I could never do it. Like I would crap my football pants knowing that like millions of people are watching and you have to walk out there on national television and kick this field goal. Otherwise an entire city's going to hate your guts.
The one that was blocked.
Yeah.
That was great. I was like, I've never seen that. I've never seen a block like that in my life. I was like, I don't even know what to say.
Right.
That was good. Or the punter, right? I'm like, really? Like, you just got to be really flexible.
Yeah.
But it's not true. I have to say, I highly respect that too.
Yes.
It's all physics, and I get it now. I get it.
Yeah, Bill Nye will explain every last bit of it to us.
There you go.
Well, all right, Joleen, once again, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. And folks listening, you will be hearing from us again. I promise you that.
All right. Thanks, James. I'll be in touch. Text me, and I will do the question thing soon.
Sounds good.
All right. Okay. Bye. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.